Hello again. This is the third segment of the on-site non-potable water systems rulemaking presentation. In this segment, we will cover part 2 of the ONWS rule. This part covers planning, review, approval, and permitting process overview. So while there are only 4 sections to part 2, section 200 through section 215, the first section, 200, outlines all of the requirements and the flow of the process from planning and design through permit applications and renewals. Okay, first section in part 2 in the rule, section 200, we've given the sequence of steps for the planning, design, and permitting process for a new ONWS. And this slide is a summary of that section, section 200. You'll see that the planning process begins early with an optional pre-project meeting that can be requested to scope the project and the required feasibility study. Also required before construction is the engineering report and construction documents for review and approval by the department. After construction, a purveyor must submit a construction completion report for review and approval to the department, as well as record drawings. All systems must operate in conditional startup mode before applying for or receiving an operating permit. Conditional startup mode must continue for 12 months. Before conditional startup mode can begin, cross-connection testing must be done in the presence of the authority having jurisdiction. Also, you must request and receive a notice to proceed to conditional startup mode and submit validation engineering reports for review and approval prior to beginning startup mode operations. That's conditional startup mode operations. During conditional startup mode operations, you must operate and report in compliance with this chapter. Before you may complete conditional startup mode, you must submit a conditional startup mode final report and the operations and maintenance or O&M manual for review and approval. Once you have an approved conditional startup mode final report and O&M manual, you may submit a permit application with the required documents, which will include, as you can imagine, the approved conditional startup mode final report and that final O&M manual. Additionally, along with the permit application, you must pay applicable fees. Once a permit has been issued, you operate in accordance with your final use mode requirements in this chapter, the approved O&M manual, and the operating permit issued by the department. An annual report is part of the required documents for the reapplication process, which must happen annually. So, next we have the feasibility study, and you could request a pre-project meeting, which would be a helpful way to scope the feasibility study, because you can see there are several components to the feasibility study, and before undertaking all of that work, it would be a good idea to reach out to the department to discuss the project and help scope the feasibility study document. Next, we have engineering report and construction documents. So engineering reports are required for all new on-site non-potable water systems, as well as those undergoing major modifications. Please see the definition section, section 115, for a definition of major modification. Additionally, it should be noted that all purveyors of unapproved legacy ONWS will be required to submit an engineering report with the same contents as a new system, but in addition, they must describe the existing facilities and all modifications needed to comply with this chapter. The contents of the engineering report must specify the necessary operating conditions and identify the surrogate parameters that require continuous monitoring. It must also show the required log reduction credits are achieved. Specifically, the engineering report must include all of the following: an overview of the facility, information and responsible parties, the basis of design, including water flow rates and water quality, treatment process design criteria, operation and maintenance considerations, monitoring and alarms, makeup water supply and cross-connection control, public exposure and impacts, detailed conditional startup mode testing and monitoring plan, and environmental documentation like SEPA. Again, I really recommend you go and look at the engineering section in the rule for all of the details, because each of these topics has a significant amount of detail and subsections that will be of interest to you as well while you're reviewing and commenting on the draft rule. This concludes segment 3 of the presentation covering part 2 of the ONWS draft rule. If you have questions, please join us for one or more of the upcoming Q&A sessions we'll hold in February. Or contact me, Jocelyn Jones, at jocelyn.jones@doh.wa.gov, or just call me at 360-326-2030. I look forward to hearing from you or seeing you at one of our upcoming virtual Q&A sessions. Thanks again for joining. And as always, to request this document in another format, please call 1-805-525-0127. Deaf or hard of hearing customers, please call 711 for Washington Relay or email civil.rights@doh.wa.gov. Thank you again for your time and attention.